Yeah, no, I appreciate you, thinking of me and all the kind words there. Always funny, when you get introduced, the LinkedIn bios and all the things you put together puts you on this nice pedestal, which is cool to reflect on. But I definitely think, whether some people call it the American dream or a way of life or just kind of, how an individual sees themselves walking through and making things, happen the way they want. I think the elements are all the same, right? You got to go figure something out you're passionate about, something you can go do in a way that gets you excited, and then be the best at it, right? And so I think that the three words on my LinkedIn are a characterization of that, right? When I think about the hustle or just the ability to keep working and going after things, right? When I think about an innovator, right, coming up with new and creative ideas to solve challenging and complex problems, right? And then when I think about building, right, I think that one is pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, no, I think it's a real thing. And again, just want to reiterate, whether it's the American dream or just a way of life is it doesn't matter to me. But I would say find kind of your lane and what you want to do and go do it well. My story is been pretty fortunate, right? Grew up in a very nice and somewhat sunny place in here in the States. And quite frankly, early on didn't know what I wanted to do. So what I tell everybody is as you're figuring things out, have a really good time doing it. So in my high school, we call it here, but just before I turned 18, was figuring things out, but had a lot of fun, had a lot of friends, and was really fortunate to get quite a lot of money to go to college. So I got a scholarship to go to college. And at that point, I had figured out, and I went to college with one, dream in mind, right? And that dream was to go work on Wall Street, right? With all the big banks, you name them, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, whole host of others, right? And I had seen all the movies of trading stocks and all the different computer monitors and knew or thought that's what I wanted to do. And so over the course of 3 years, I worked really hard and diligently, right? We talked about the three things I mentioned before, but the reason I say it's a way of life, not an American dream or something somebody else has prescribed, is because when I got to the trading floor, right, where they do all the stuff I mentioned, it felt like a dream for the first 2 weeks. And I quickly realized, for a whole host of reasons, that this life was likely not going to be for me. And so I had to make a big pivot. And it was hard. It was challenging. It wasn't fun, right? But a lot of that was because, you pour a lot into something, you want to go after it. And when you get there, it doesn't work out. It's not always easy. But, again, trusted the process, realigned and stayed true to those values, right? I continued to be the best at what I thought I was going to do. I continued to push things forward. I continued to just do, everything I could. And so I actually made my way to the city of Detroit. And the backstory on the city of Detroit is one of the most diverse cities in the United States, probably in the world. It has one of the most, interesting entrepreneurial ecosystems. And I was really fortunate to work with, a few prominent leaders. But again, it was taking a bet on myself to do something different, right? It was, going back to those core values and saying what aligns, and then really, pursuing it from there. And so I've had the great fortune of, since starting working on a lot of philanthropic efforts, so giving away a lot of money. That's a fancy way of saying that. And currently, I'm working on a project where I'm trying to get a whole lot of people in the city excited about youth entrepreneurship, right? So, young folks, the next generation, if you will, inspiring them and equipping them with the resources that you all need to be successful. And what I tell you is the biggest thing you can do now is be curious, and build everything or as many things as you can your toolkit now, right? And so, my favorite example of this is, going through college, I competed in what they call case competitions, but it's similar to a whole host of other competitions. But I ended up, almost paying for school just alone with those competitions. And so, how can you start preparing, now to give professional presentations? How can you start preparing now to start, thinking about the business model canvas and things like that. And what I would tell you is the biggest thing that I've learned is you stay true to yourself and you work really hard and you figure things out, but you have a good time doing it. The skills you learned yesterday are the same skills you'll be using tomorrow. And if you don't have any skills today, you won't have any skills tomorrow. And so I think there's a whole host of talks, especially here in the States, around does it make sense to go to college? Does it make sense to go to trade school? I actually think it's irrelevant because when you're the best at what you do, there'll always be opportunities. And so I would encourage everyone here, to spend time, right? Figuring out what gets them excited and how they can be the best. And the final thing I would say, as we conclude on my story, is I have a lot of friends, going through, and I'm still pretty young, right? But going through a quarter life crisis, right? You get to this point, you graduated, similar to what I was saying, right? You thought you hit the pinnacle of success, right? You got the job, right? You're doing all these things and you get there and you're still not happy, or something happens in life. And what I would tell you is twofold. Number one, again, always do things you enjoy. But number two, always take time to reflect and say, hey, you have done incredible stuff. You are amazing, right? Because this world is sometimes not all that friendly and kind. And sometimes it'll tell you you're doing great. And other times it'll kick you while you're down. But you always have to remember, and you have to surround yourself with folks who, even through some of those challenges, some of those mountains that you have to climb, they're pushing you up right along the way. And so that would be my final thought is, I tell people everything I do it with a smile, right? I'm smiling here today, right? And I just keep pushing in that positive spirit, right? Because you're the only person who can push yourself to do more. You're the only person, who's in control of your destiny. And knowing those two things sometimes is scary, but ultimately is what, keeps me going. So, excited to be here, excited to be able to share my story. And the only thing I would say is this world is your oyster. You go use it and manipulate it in the way that you feel is fit and have fun doing so. Because any other way, in my personal view, is the wrong way.
Well, thanks, Trevor. And, the one question that comes to mind is that how do you think life would be different if you had been born in a different country? Like, you're in Raleigh and life is good, and it's a place that people like to go on holidays. And what if you were born in a really, really harsh place? How would your personality take you further? Because you'll still be a hustler trying to be successful, but what is your take on that?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a great question. And what I would tell you is, you alluded to this, but I'll call it out very clearly. I've had a phenomenal life. I've been incredibly blessed. And it was even to the point where I hadn't experienced a lot of, traumas, right? No really body close had passed. I hadn't had any, crazy situations. And the fortunate and unfortunate reality is life, they happen to everybody. And my grandmother, who I was really close to, passed about a month ago. And about 2 weeks ago, my dad had a heart attack, which is a really scary health event, right? And what I tell you from those experiences, which I think would translate well, is some of those pieces would still be with me. But number one, you start to really understand what's important in life. And right now, even still, based on, where I am, I think there's a lot of things that I take for granted that, if I didn't have them, I definitely wouldn't. Number two, I think this is actually really important, there's a certain level of empathy that comes once you experience something. So when somebody says, oh, this was my experience, and you don't understand it, or you don't know exactly what it feels like, you might say, oh, that's, not good, but I can see how you might be able to manage. Whereas when you actually go through something, you're like, oh, this is how it feels. And I would say, that empathy and that level of understanding is incredibly valuable in this, world. And I think, those experiences would definitely shape me in a way to what I would say would make me a more holistic, leader. It would make me a more holistic, thought partner in a lot of work, and just really help me understand, why people make the decisions they make. And again, I think that's an asset in this, kind of connected and global marketplace today. And so I would say, there's a lot of things that I don't know a lot about, but one of the core tenets of design thinking is all around empathy, right? And having that, understanding those things is a resource. And to the extent that folks feel comfortable and can manage through, because life is hard, right? Like it's not always fun. It's not always, bright and shining. I have to tell people I smile a lot, but I try my best not to let it hide some of the pain that sometimes comes with life. And so I think, the biggest thing for me would just, having more experiences and empathy. And that's one thing that as things start to reopen and, we're here to travel. It's one of the things that is a top priority for me is going to get those experiences, right? Because I think everybody is fortunate and has things in their own respect, but everybody comes from different walks of life. And that's here in the US and internationally. And I think there's something to gain from all of it. So I just think, having those experiences would open my eyes even more than they are now and would give me a new level of perspective to really kind of shape, some of the things I'm doing. So thank you for that question. And I hope that answer helps.
No, it's great. Another insight I like to have from you is, what are your thoughts on digital nomads? As in,
Mm.
with the work you're doing, could you just go to an island in New Zealand and just keep on doing it? I mean, can you do parts of it from anywhere in the world? And what are your thoughts in terms of becoming a digital nomad and being completely free and untethered in terms of geographic location?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And the honest answer is I like the idea of being to go wherever, but I think it's very project and work related, right? And I'll give you, my example. So to answer your question directly, to do my job on a day-to-day basis, um, like just to do my job, I could do it from anywhere. But to do my job well, I need to be in this ecosystem, right? And so I can't, for example, have a conversation with a kid over Zoom in the same way I can have it in person. I can't have that hard conversation with an entrepreneur, right, over Zoom the same way I could have it in person. And just like I experienced, I got to spend. I'll put it to you like this: I got to spend the last week my grandmother was around in person with her after some time away for COVID. And I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. And while I'm not categorizing any of my work in the same way I would family, what I tell you is there's certain experiences, especially in this work of philanthropy and entrepreneurship, development and building ecosystems that you just have to be in person. And so I think for me, the way that I see myself being a nomad is being connected to different ecosystems. So if there's opportunities, whether if you know of any or folks have ideas where I could go and take some of the things I'm doing here in the city of Detroit and help, a country or a city or whoever, implement it there, I would love to go do that work. But I think I will always be a boots on the ground kind of guy. And so whether that means I'm in several different places and just having to travel, or whether it means I'm in one market doing and going really deep, I think that's kind of just my 2 cents. Now, with that being said, I do think there's a lot of folks who are doing interesting work who can do it from wherever. There's a lot of programs that are incentivizing it now. And I would tell people, if they think it makes sense, to take advantage of all of it because everybody's different. I do think that a change of scenery, I do think the opportunity to travel and get exposed to new things is incredibly important. And I still want to create those things for myself. But I think there's no one right answer. I think nomads are phenomenal. I have friends who are doing it and loving it. And I think it might even be something I explore, in the not so distant future, just as a once in a lifetime kind of thing, right? Like who can say they've worked in, 5 or 6 different countries, right? Like those are things that, again, you can't say. And so I think just based on my person and kind of my work up until this point, I'll probably try to, build real relationships in various ecosystems. But that's not to say I don't like nomads or think they're valuable, and or not to say I myself might not one day explore that opportunity as well.
Okay, it's a very strong point and a very valuable one as well. And it is definitely for people who have that kind of need and a sort of a fire in the belly, where they want to go out there. I mean, I've worked in 12 different countries, but I'm probably
Wow.
twice your age. That's a different story, and it comes with the first wave, right? This is where you will end up. Depends on the currents that you get into. And one of the things that you did that's potentially of interest to so many other people out there was to become a Venture for America a fellow. So
Mm,
the question is, how did that come to your radar? And what do you have to do to be considered? Because most of the time, you can apply, right? You can apply to become a TED fellow, but it's so much easier when you have a referral. Someone is basically saying, hey, this is a man, I mean, is a great match, and he'll do really well in this community. So any hints in terms of the best way for people to get similar positions, not necessarily VFA?
Yeah, for sure. So how it came to me, you mentioned it. It's all about who you know. So as I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I had a friend in the network who I thought was doing cool stuff, and I reached out, and he was gracious enough to give me a couple of minutes and talk me through this program called Venture for America, which at the time I was very unfamiliar with, but with time became very acclimated with the program, and was able to kind of really just settle in and get comfortable with it. What I would tell folks is twofold. So when I was deciding what I wanted to do right out of school, I reached out to over 100 people to get career advice, to better understand what their experience was, and to really identify what would get me excited. And what I would tell you is two things. Number one, when I made the decision to join Venture for America, it came from those conversations and networking, but I was very confident in that decision. Hindsight being 2020, right? Like it's always easy to say, oh, I wish I would have known this then, right? We all say that about things like Bitcoin, right? Like hindsight being 2020 is one of the things where I look back and say, hey, this wasn't the perfect opportunity, but given the information I had, it was amazing. And so I would tell people in order to find these opportunities, because there's a whole host of fellowships, scholarships, study abroad programs, you name it, it's out there. And so it's just about doing research and, connecting with folks on digital platforms like LinkedIn, similar to how we got connected, right? And kind of going from there. And the final thing I'll say, because I know we're getting close to time, is you have my information. So if anybody wants to reach out about Venture for America or the city of Detroit or anything in between, I'm always happy to have these conversations and try to give people as much wisdom and guidance as I know how at this current time.
Fantastic, Trevor. So it's like a very punchy message, very useful. So thank you a lot for joining us. Real pleasure to host you here. And I will wish you not only an amazing weekend, but an amazing life. It looks like it's inevitable from what I heard.
You're too kind. Look, I think smiles are contagious. So I hope, I gave a smile today. And thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work you're doing. And again, if there's anything I can do to be helpful, feel free to reach out. That's for you or anybody who's listening. So God bless and thank you guys so much.